Hello and welcome to the CV Aberdeen workshop today. Just before we start, I'm going to hand you over to Darren, who's our Managing Director, to do some introductions.
Thanks, Stacey. Welcome all to the CV Aberdeen webinar. I'm Darren Axeldy. I own CV Aberdeen, and along with Stacey, we work in it together. Today we'll go through a few various outlining things that will help you, hopefully, with your career going forward. So I'll just pass you over to Stacey, and she can tell you what we're going to do going forward.
Thanks, Darren. So my name is Stacey Etchell. I'm an associate with CV Aberdeen, so I write the CVs and help with LinkedIn profiles and some training and a few things that we're going to talk about today. My background is I don't currently work in recruitment. I have for a few years previously, although I was never a recruiter, but I did work with recruitment businesses. So this is where my knowledge has come from. Today, we're going to talk to you about updating your CV. We're going to be looking at how to update your LinkedIn profile, how to use LinkedIn for job searching, some jobs boards best practice, and some interview skills. From here on out, I'm just letting you, I'll be switching off my camera, but I'm still here, you will still hear me. Here we go. Right, so updating your CV. Well, what is a CV really? Your CV is got to be about you. This will be the first introduction to a recruiter and potentially your new employer. So for them to get to know you, you need to have a very good and engaging CV. Darren, working in recruitment, will back me up on this, that recruiters literally decide within the first few seconds, maybe up to about 5 seconds, if they want to read further in your CV or not. So to make them want to read further, you have to capture their attention. Your CV has to make you stand out from the crowd. What I'm going to run through here is a list of things you need to include with a little bit of background why. First of all, ensure, might be obvious, but in case some people do forget, do ensure that your name and a job title is at the top of your CV. That might be the profession you want to work in. It could be quite generalized, or you may be quite specific if you're adapting your CV for a job you're applying for. Let me give you an example. Maybe your background is sales, account management, business development. Maybe you've kind of worked in all and you're happy to do something in any, while you would maybe just put a sales and business development professional at the top of your CV. But then the job you're actually applying for might be a business development executive. Well, that's what you're going to put at the top. You do then want to start with your summary, or also known as your personal profile. 1 or 2 paragraphs, not too long, but enough that the recruiters can read and instantly see, yes, I want to read further to find out more about this person. In a couple of sentences, what you are capable of and why you should be somebody that they want to speak to about this job. But your key skills after that, if you can have your summary and your key skills all on page 1, then these are the things that they should be wanting to see before they make decisions on moving any further. So ensure your key skills cover all your bases and everything that you are capable of. Then you're going to put your experience in. Generally, this would go in chronological order. If some of your previous experiences do not relate to what you're doing or what you want to do, it is okay to move them to another section. Don't leave them off of your CV, because a lot of if you're applying on a online jobs board, and some recruiters will also run your CV through a CV checker, it's called an ATS, an automatic tracking system, and there are parameters that can be set within the ATS. Some of them will say if there's been a gap on the CV that the CV can't go any further. So you don't want to leave any gaps. Ensure that you do have all of your jobs there, and the ones that are maybe not relevant, that maybe you've done a couple in between but they just don't count anymore, have another section. You can have it as further employment or other employment or something like that, but have that there so that you are not missing out on any of the dates. When you are putting in your experiences, in particular the ones that are relevant, ensure that you have it more listed as achievements rather than just duties. That's not to say not to include some duties if they are very specialised or technical and they contain keywords. When you are looking to apply for jobs, you want your CV to have some keywords that match what's in the job description of the application that the job that you're applying for. So do make sure that you have enough there, not too much, you don't want to make it run on too long, but enough that's relevant. Just to give you an example, and I keep this one very basic. If you if your job was an administration assistant, quite often what I will see on CVs is that somebody will put a copy and paste of their job description. In their job description, it will say filing. Well, any recruiter or hiring manager is going to know that as an admin assistant, filing was potentially part of your job. So you don't need to list that duty. However, maybe while you were there, you created a filing system that made things far more efficient. Well, in that case, that's what you want to put down. So hope you can see there the difference between the achievement and not the duty, but having it there. Do ensure that any keywords that are relevant to the job you're going for, that you do have them throughout your CV. Even having them 2 to 3 times mean they're more likely to be picked up. So anything that's relevant, make sure you have it. Maybe have a little bit in the summary, a bit in your other experiences, and potentially your key skills. It is okay to list your hobbies. Some people wonder if it should be there or if it shouldn't. Having your hobbies may not necessarily get you the job, but it could endear you to the person looking at it by letting them get to feel they know you a little bit better. If you are listing your hobbies, if you can, maybe make them a bit relevant, but don't feel you have to put hobbies. So guys, socializing with your friends is not a hobby. It's just something you enjoy, but you wouldn't need to put that on your CV. Make sure you've got contact details. Again, another obvious one, but sometimes it can be easily forgotten. I pop these at the bottom of the CV. Don't feel the need for them to be there at the top, because a recruiter will not contact you unless they're happy with what they've seen. So let them get through your CV and then have your contact details at the bottom. Ensure that within your contact details you have a phone number, one that you will answer, so whether that is your landline or your mobile, but one that you're going to answer. Have an email address, preferably one with your name in it and no other details. The ATS systems will pick up on if it's an email address that doesn't have your name. So no ones that are just made up, I love bacon at gmail.com, for example, if you like to make cakes. Have something that is your name. A free account is fine, so Gmail, Hotmail, whatever, that's not a problem, but keep it nice and simple. If you're using one that has your date of birth, guys, I would get another one. It's not good from a security point of view. A lot of people do it. It's not great from a security point of view, but also you wouldn't be putting your date of birth on a CV, so let's not put it in there. And then don't forget to put your postal address as well. The systems can really flag up if you don't have that as well. So what not to have, I just mentioned one there, it's your date of birth. You don't need to put that on it at all. It's up to a recruiter. A recruiter has to be judging what they see based on what you're capable of. Things that won't matter to you getting a job should be your age, your sex, what you look like, anything like that. So those things don't need to go on your CV, and in fact they shouldn't. So no photo, no date of birth. You don't really need to put that you've got a clean driver's license. If you're going for a driver's job, maybe you would put it there, but ultimately, even if driving is part of the job, before you're applying for it, they would know that. So they're looking more at your key skills, first of all. If you don't drive, then don't apply for a job that you need to drive. And I think that covers about what not to have. The length of it, you do want to make sure that you have all important information. You don't want to go on and waffle to make it a long CV. About 2 pages is ideal. If you've only had 1 or 2 jobs before and it fits in one, that's fine. You don't have to make it 2 pages. If you really cannot fit it into 2 pages and it has to go on to 3, that's fine. But just check that's not because you've been repeating yourself, that you've been waffling and making things read longer than what they have to. The only time it should really be going on to that time is really because it cannot fit otherwise. And finally, proof it. Proof it, proof it, proof it, proof it. Check it, and check it again. And when you're finished, ask somebody else to check it. Make sure there's no mistakes in your CV. In particular, if you have mentioned in your key skills something like attention to detail, then get it checked again. But it's not always very easy to spot your own mistakes. I know that from experience. It's a lot easier for somebody else to look at it. So once you've got your CV the way you want it, get somebody else to check it for you. Okay, got your CV up to date. Perfect. Now we want to have a look at your LinkedIn. I did tell you in your CV that you shouldn't have a photo or anything like that. Well, LinkedIn is slightly different. And it kind of goes slightly against the grain when I've told you not to put it in your CV, because most recruiters will go and check out your social media. They're not doing that for any of the judgment purposes. It's more to try and get to know you a bit better, to know how you are on social media and what you've got there. So you want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is as professional as your CV and matches, and has a lot of these key elements. Ensure that you've got a good profile photo. Head and shoulders, nice, clean and simple, up against a plain background. It doesn't have to be professional, great if it is, but really even just a very plain shot with your phone is absolutely fine, as long as it looks like you. So nothing too fancy, and not a photo that you took on a night out that you thought you looked good. You probably did, but for LinkedIn purposes, let's keep it nice and plain and simple and very professional. Next to your photo and your name on LinkedIn, you are given a headline. The default with LinkedIn will always be your most current or your last job title with the company that was with. So when you're using LinkedIn, updating LinkedIn for a job search, you have 2 options depending on what route you're going down. If it's public knowledge that you're searching for a job, then put that in there. Anywhere within LinkedIn, you want to be having at least any keyword that's important. You want to be having that 3 to 4 times splattered around about your profile. So you can start with your headline. If it's public knowledge, start with something like actively seeking, and whatever the job is. So, going along the sales, actively seeking sales, business development, account management, and then put the area as well. So it's very obvious. So if that was what you were doing and you lived in Aberdeen, you'd be putting actively seeking sales, BD, key account roles in Aberdeen. What you've done there is you've managed to get a few keywords in straight off the bat. And for recruiters who are running searches on LinkedIn, sometimes they will search for words like actively seeking or looking or searching. So having some of those in means you are more likely to be returned in a search. Now, maybe it's not public knowledge that you're looking for a new job. Maybe you don't want your current employers to know. So you're not going to be putting those words in there. But you could still get some of the main keywords in what you do without it having to be just your job title and company you work for. So if it is sales and business development, you might be putting something like, experienced, successful sales and business development professional in Aberdeen. So you've not mentioned the exact job title, you've not mentioned the company you work for, but you've just given a little more insight into what it is you do. You've got an about section in LinkedIn. It used to be called the summary, and this is kind of like the summary from your LinkedIn profile. When you're using LinkedIn not for job searching, I always tell people not to use their summary from their CV. When you are, use it. Use your summary and use your key skills. You would change how you write it slightly. So in your CV, your summary should be written in the 3rd person. In your LinkedIn profile, do not write it as a 3rd person. People are on your private page. They're looking at you. So talk about I, me, things like that. Let them feel like they're speaking with you. So just convert what you've put. You can reword it slightly so it can soften it a little bit, still have some of your key skills, and feel free to add a little bit more so that they can feel they can get to know you in there. There's a new section on LinkedIn where you can feature items. It's almost like having a little pin or a bookmark on your page. So you can feature documents. If you've got a job where you've got some work that you can show, feature it there. If it's public knowledge, put your CV there. So there's a lot you can use with this section. We then come to the experience. The experience is your job history. With LinkedIn, it will automatically order everything into chronological order. So other than like how we spoke about your CV, you would still include all your jobs. They will go into all chronological order. But on LinkedIn, what to do is any jobs that are relevant to what it is you're looking to do, then include as much detail in the description as you can. Your achievements, all the things from your CV. The ones that don't relate, just don't put anything in the detail. You don't want to muddy the water with keywords that don't relate. I've just mentioned that keyword there again, and it's just a little reminder. Remember that for a profile to really work for you, the keywords should be in it within about 3 or 4 times. It's more likely to be returned in a search if you have it repeated throughout your profile. Have a look at the skills and endorsements. If any of you have been using LinkedIn for a long time, like I have, you might remember a time when you logged into LinkedIn, you were presented with 4 boxes, and LinkedIn would be asking you if you want to endorse one of your connections. And it would say something along the lines, if I'd logged in, it might have said, does Darren Agassild know about technical recruiting and CV writing and things like that? And I could just select as many as I want to give them these endorsements. Now, that was fine if they did relate. However, LinkedIn wasn't quite as clever as what it is now. And quite often it was throwing up things from your profile that maybe weren't exact. So for my example, I did tell you earlier that I worked in recruitment for about 10 years, but I was never a recruiter. So what I was doing is I sold advertising for the local paper. And then I also did some advertising for an online oil and gas jobs board. And then I worked for recruitment agencies and business development. So I was bringing the clients in for the recruiters to source. So whilst I'd worked in the environment for a long time, I'd never actually recruited. And yet when I went to clean up my skills a couple of years ago, I had a very high amount of endorsements for technical recruiting, which I would not even know where to begin. Now, all that's doing, it's muddying the water. At the time when I was doing that, I wasn't looking for work. So for me, it didn't matter from that term, but I am always looking for business. And it was not returning the right searches for me to find business. So even in a recruitment term, it's the same story. Get rid of any skills that don't count. Just delete them. It doesn't matter if you have a heap of endorsements. They don't really matter as much. Get rid of them. Make sure you're happy with what's left, and then go and see what other skills you can add in. You can work on the endorsements, getting them later on. They're not as obvious to do as what it was back then, but it's more important to have the skills there as keywords. Look to add in what courses you have done. It's very simple to do there as well. And then look at the recommendation section. The recommendation section really can help make it or break it. It's one thing you saying that you're good at something, or you'd be a good employee, or you'd be a great fit, but it's a whole other kettle of fish when somebody else is saying it. So you want to maybe go and look for some of your clients, ask them to recommend you, because if you've got good recommendations from clients, somebody's going to want you to work for them. And also look for past colleagues, whether that was managers or peers, and see if you can get some recommendations, because an employer would like to know that you were a good person to work with. Ensure that your contact details are up to date. Contact details are often overlooked with LinkedIn. People remember to update their jobs and then forget that they may have used a company email address. Ensure that you have, if possible, 2 email addresses, but if you're job hunting, make your primary email address your personal one, and just make it easy, make them visible so that recruiters can contact you easily. Okay, there's a lot talking there. So just before I hand you over to Darren, while we're on LinkedIn, I still just want to cover out using LinkedIn for job searching. So hopefully by now you've got a really good CV, you've got your profile up to date. Well, now it's now to do a little bit of hunting on LinkedIn. So here's a few things that you can do. The first two on here are going to be if you are out of work and or it's public knowledge that you're looking for work. So look to maybe create a post. Creating a post on LinkedIn will put it out to some of your connections and let them know that you're open. Make sure that you include things of like the type of work you'd like, some of your skills, the location that you want to work in. Don't have people second guessing, because if, for example, I have a very large network and it's global, so if I were to comment on your post and it shows up to one of my connections, they might not know where you're based. So it really helps people if you could be quite specific. For it to work really well, ensure that you've got at least 5 lines, but try and space it out, guys, not a 5-line paragraph or a 6-line paragraph. You know, a couple of sentences with a space and a couple of hashtags will be all that you would need as a minimum. Maybe have a photo and an image. It just breaks it up a little bit from the next post. Space it out, make it easy to read, and keep it positive. No moaning, no blasting your last company if things like that have happened. Recruiters don't want to see that. Just keep it as positive and just say that, you know, you're reaching out to your connections for a little bit of help. Another thing you can do is within your profile, you can create a new experience. Because it'll be current, you can leave the button switched on that it will go out to your network and people will see that as a post, and a lot of people will see those, and that lets people know instantly that you're available. So again, this will only work if you are actually available, but instead of showing the last place you worked as your most current, just create one. I did this when I was, my role was made redundant with one of the recruitment agencies about 5 years ago, and I changed one of my experiences. It's still on my profile, I've never taken it off, and it just said for the job title I had sales, business development, key account. That's what I was doing at the time. And for the company, it just, I think I put something like actively seeking or available for work, something like that, and then put something in the description, and that really went out to a lot of people. Finally, from me for a second, and you don't have to hear my voice for a few more minutes, is within your profile, you can then go and switch a few buttons to let recruiters know that you're open. This won't go out to your employers. This will only be for recruiters who have subscribed to use it, but if any of them are within your company, they won't get it. So you can show recruiters that you're open for job opportunities by just clicking on the get started here from your profile, and then you'll be taken to a new page like the square box below. You'll be able to add job titles, locations, and what type of work you want. You can then select whether it's only recruiters or if anybody can see it, and add that to your profile. If you've selected only recruiters, it will only be people who've subscribed to a recruiter license that can see it. If you've left it open that other people can see it, then you will be open for anyone to find you for work. Right, let me hand you over to Darren for a little bit, and he's going to talk to you about jobs boards and best practice with them.
Okay, thanks, Stacey. As you've heard, there's a number of things that you need to do to get to this stage. So obviously, make sure your CV is up to date. You've got it looking as good as possible. And then what you're kind of looking for is there's a lot of different varieties of job boards out there. So job boards are what recruiters use, what employers use to try and find people. Why do you register on them? Well, basically, it's for us to find you. So if you don't register on there, your chances of being found are very slim. So like LinkedIn, get that up to date, but also the job boards. There is a variety of job boards out there, and it does depend on what industry you're looking for. There is generic ones, which I've got detailed below, which a number of high street recruiters and also more generalist recruiters will look at. So like the CV library is getting bigger, Total Jobs, Job Site. There are some of the bigger ones out there, and you've probably heard of Indeed with all their advertising. But the local ones sort of to Scotland or regional central belt is S1 Jobs, very good. And then you've got sort of industry specific, maybe oil and gas related, which is oil rig zone, your oil and gas search, and another one which is oil and gas vision jobs, which has just come on board. So it'd be worth you having a look at them if it's specifically oil and gas jobs you're looking for. But we're going to go on to the next slide, if we can, Stacey. And what I'm going to tell you is a wee snapshot from a recruiter's point of view. As you know, I own CV Aberdeen, and me and Stacey work quite closely together with this, but I also own Rose Recruitment, which is a recruitment agency. So we use this job boards every day, day in, day out. And this is our means to try and find you, along with LinkedIn and other platforms. So please make sure that if you've done LinkedIn, make sure you go and do the job boards, do them all, because we will search in different ways and different means. So as you can see, this is a snapshot of what we look at. And we have got over 15 million CVs available to us on this specific job board. There is others, and will be millions of other candidates out there. So this is where you need to think about, how do you come across and how is your CV portrayed on job boards in particular at this stage. So the keywords are quite specific if you're looking for certain industries. So if you're a CNC programmer and it's a MASIC program you're looking for, please put that on your CV, because the more we see the programs, or we can see SAP or various other things on your CV, it will come up on this specific keyword search. And that goes for your CV as well, because if you put that on there, and the more times you reiterate it, the more you're going to come up against, sort of, if you're applying for jobs and the jobs for a CNC programmer. The other things we can do is we can do headhunting, so make sure your name's spelt right, and you know, if it's shortened, then make sure that you use your full name. It's difficult. And then you've got job title. We can search by specific job titles. So if you've got various different things in your CV, please be careful what you put in there and make sure that you're found. The other things is salary banding. A lot of people want the big bucks out there, which we all do, but unfortunately, this is quite an important part when you're registering on job boards. If you are in the bracket of, say, £20,000 to £25,000 in your salary banding, and you might be an administrator, what you really should do is tick that box, because if you don't, then you're not going to get the alerts against that jobs that come on in that sort of area. So if you just leave it as blank, then you might not get any alerts for any job. So please be careful with that one. Job type, quite self-explanatory, depends on what you want to do. Right now, I would leave them as all types to give you a wee bit more of a chance in the market against everybody else. But that's entirely up to you and your situation. The next one is location. We can narrow it down to specifics in terms of, is it a specific location that we're looking for throughout the UK or the world? We can narrow it right down into 1 mile radius, and then we will open the search up. So how a recruiter thinks is that we go small, and then we grow and grow and grow the radius of where we're looking for candidates. So keep that as varied as possible, and if you're happy to relocate, then obviously put that into when you're creating your profile on the job boards. But the biggest thing for us is probably the last one, submitted since. Now, Stacey's talked about it before, where we will do is we'll narrow the radius right down. We'll narrow everything right down to try and find the perfect candidate for a client. So if you've been on the job boards and you probably haven't been on there for 6 months, and your profile, you haven't done anything with it, then the chances of us finding you against people who've maybe registered in the last week, 2 weeks, a month, then they'll probably come to the top of the search before you, if they've got more keywords there. So we can narrow it down into 24 hours, into 7 days, into a month. You know, we can use all different sorts of mediums there. And then what we will do is we will start highlighting people and start phoning. And as Stacey kindly mentioned earlier on, right now we are getting inundated with CVs left, right and centre, and that number of 15 million people up there will be increasingly going up as we talk. So you've got approximately 5 seconds, I would say, for a recruiter to look over your CV right now. And if it's not hitting the spot, they'll move on. It's that quick. So please make sure that you are being seen above other people and make sure that you're doing that. Now, where you can look at various different things is that you can go to Google and you can type in your job title and type in recruitment, and that will bring up sort of specific job boards that might help you with your industry. So that's a point of view from our recruiter, but yeah, go back onto that job boards and get your profile updated. That's the best advice I can offer. So Stacey, I'll hand over to you to look at the interviews.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so guys, sorry you have to listen to me for a bit longer again, but I promise you we won't be keeping you for too much longer, and hopefully you'll get a lot of value out of this session today. So, okay, let's recap. CV, you've got that, absolutely perfect. LinkedIn, up to date, and between LinkedIn and job searching and even some good old-fashioned applying direct, you have managed to secure an interview. So here's what we would recommend, some of the skills that you would that will help you through the interview process. We are filming this during coronavirus, so some of what we're going to talk about will be on video and some will be in person, and I'll cross that each one when we come to it. The first one is about doing your homework. So this one applies to both, whether it's a video interview or an in-person interview. Do your homework before you go in. Check out the company, Google them, have a look at their website, view of the pages. Not that you have to really know it inside out, but do have a good look, check their social media. Be prepared that when somebody says, have you looked at our website, that you can say yes. They're not going to quiz you on it, and if they ask you questions, you should be able to answer or at least come up with something that you've seen, but don't sit there and say no. Go and do your homework so you can get to know the company. Also have a good look at the job description and make sure that you're comfortable and you understand that. And also find out who you're being interviewed by and have a look at them as well. They will be checking you out. There's no harm in you feeling you want to get to know them. It will make that relationship a bit easier. So do your homework. The second one also applies to both, although if it's a video one, you really only have to worry about what you're wearing on your top half, but do dress appropriately. Different jobs and different positions may come with different levels of appropriate dress. So if it is like a trades or labouring job, you don't have to put on a suit and tie, but also don't go in scruffy, dirty clothes. You can still be relatively smart. If it's an office job, yes, be smart. If it's a very senior position, make sure you've got a shirt and tie or a suit on or something very smart. So do dress appropriately for the position. And even if you're sitting at home behind your computer, as long as your top half, as long as what people can see looks smart, then that's fine. This one applies for the video interviews. Watch what you have in your background behind you. Don't be sitting where you've got a really big cluttered mess, lots of stuff going on. Even if it's busy but not messy, it's still going to be very distracting. You're better to try and find a very calm place. Some platforms like Zoom, you will see when I've got my camera on, I have a built-in background, so you can't see what's going on behind me at all, which is great if you can have that, but not everybody uses Zoom and not every platform has the same. So do try and find somewhere to sit where nobody's going to be distracted and you don't have a lot going on behind you. Again, on a video interview, ensure that you have made appropriate provisions for anybody in the house to have no or little interruptions. Make sure that you don't have kids screaming, dogs barking. I know this from experience because I have a puppy, so it can really get in the way. And you know, ask where possible, if children and pets, ask them to stay away or put them in another room and keep the door shut. Just for that interview, you don't want those interruptions. Ensure that whether you are logging onto a video or going to an interview, that you arrive on time. Make provisions to be there a little bit early, not too much. That can also put somebody out if you were to arrive there like half an hour early and they're not prepared. But 5 to 10 minutes for an in-person interview, and 1 to 2 for a video interview. You don't have to be massively early for that. They probably won't be online early anyway, and if they are, they're chatting about the interview. So 1 or 2 minutes before for video, and 5 to 10 for an in-person meeting. And when you do get to that in-person meeting 5 to 10 minutes early, remember, if there's a reception team there, to be very polite and courteous with them. Quite often, hiring managers will come down and ask the reception team what they thought of the candidates. They're the first point of call, and if you are not polite and courteous to them, that will be fed back. So you might be nervous. Nerves is absolutely fine, but at least remember to be polite and courteous. When it comes to greeting interviews, I stumble on this one a little bit because I don't know what's going to happen when we're all allowed back into the world again, whether we are going to be shaking hands or not. Normally, I would be telling you, shake the interviewer's hands, look them in the eye. Well, if that is coming back and you're comfortable to do so, yes, do so. If not, there's no harm in being very polite and just looking at them, smiling, and saying hello. And obviously for a video one, you can't shake hands anyway, so just remember and be polite and smile and say hello. I shouldn't really have to say this, but I do. No eating or chewing. In an in-person interview, I don't think anybody would go in there eating, but you might go in chewing gum and thinking that's okay. A tiny little piece of gum, it is very obvious when someone's chewing it, so don't go in chewing gum. And don't sit in your video conference and think it's okay to eat something as well. Absolutely not. For the length of the interview, you can wait. So have something to eat before and then have something ready for after. Do, however, feel free to take a glass of water if it's offered to you, and have one with you for your video call. Be careful. As Darren has pointed out, he has interviewed many people who are very nervous before, and nerves, of course, can bring shakes, and shakes can knock over a glass of water. So you do want to be careful with that. Maybe don't have it too close to you, or don't have your hands around it if you are feeling nervous. But even if you're not thirsty at the start, you will potentially get a dry mouth from talking and some nerves building up, and that water, having that water there, even if you don't need to take a sip, then you know it's there. Obviously, if it's next to your computer, you do also want that extra careful, because you don't want to knock your glass of water on it and break it. So do be careful, or maybe have it like in a sports bottle to the side or something like that. Remember your posture. Sit up straight, don't be slouching. You know, if you're sitting on a couch for an interview, for example, you don't need to be so prim and proper that you're uncomfortable, but do sit up straight and hold your shoulders back and your head up. Take your CV along with you. You should know what's in your CV, especially if you've written it and you followed all of our advice, but do take it with you, because often recruiters will refer to points in your CV, and it will just, you know, you will be completely forgiven for having a mind blank in an interview, and having your CV there in front of you means you can quickly glance at it and be able to help with the answer to whatever they've asked you. And sometimes even just the action of having your CV there, you don't forget what you've done in it. So do remember and take a copy, and if it's a video interview, have it sitting next to you. When you're asked questions, take a moment to answer them. Don't feel you have to rush an answer. Think about it for a second. A glass of water can be a great prop for this, because you can take a sip of water and use those few seconds to think about what's been said, but even without it, still take that moment before you answer. If you're unsure at all, ask them to clarify. Don't answer something you're not sure. Either say, can you explain that, or could you say it again, or could you clarify, or you put your understanding of the question across to them and let them say if that's what they're looking for. So if you're unsure, if in doubt at all, do clarify. And don't waffle. Give your answers and then shut up. You might feel that you have to fill in any silences, but if you've given an answer, then that's all you have to give. You can wait for them. Have some questions ready, prepare them before. Have quite a lot down, ones that may be quite obviously going to be answered, but just in case they don't ask them, then you can ask them. And even if they do answer all your questions, at the end, they'll quite often say to you, do you have any questions? And if you can honestly like show them at the interview or be in the video one and have that in front of you and say, well, I did, but you've answered them all, then it shows that you still were thinking about it rather than just saying no and leaving it there. Remember to thank them. At this stage, I wouldn't be asking for things about salary. I'll give you a little story about asking for a salary. So a few years ago, I was leaving one industry, looking to join another, applied for a role. It was because it was a different industry and a different role to what I was doing. I had no idea of what the salary expectation was, but I liked the look of the job. It was a field sales executive for an advertising role. And I was a manager of a travel agent, so I didn't know how the salaries correlated. I'd applied, got an interview, asked about the salary, and was told they don't discuss salaries before. And in my mind, I was thinking I didn't want to waste their time, but they were adamant I should come for the interview anyway. So I went, not knowing if I could even afford to take the job. During the interview, they then, because of my background, they actually said they had another position that had come available for a team leader and asked if I'd interview for that instead, which I did. They then put me forward for a second interview with the overall boss, and I passed that interview, and I was then actually offered a manager's position. So I'd gone in for field sales and offered 2 steps higher, which the salary for that was more what I was looking for. Had I known the first salary, I wouldn't have even gone for the job. So don't be too disheartened if people are not talking to you about salaries at this stage. It's more important to create a good impression with the interview, and then you would have those discussions obviously before you take it any further. Do, however, feel free at the interview to ask what the next steps are, so that you're not coming off the interview wondering if or when they'll be in touch. Some recruiters do. I do think it's a shame if you've been for an interview, you should at least have a conversation after. But some recruiters may not contact you if you've not been successful. So clarify that at the start so that you do know. And finally, the last thing is enjoy it. This could be your new work family. These could be the people that you are now spending most of your life with Monday to Friday, that when you're not sleeping. So enjoy your interview. Let them feel like they've got to know you. Let them feel like they want you to be part of the team. And even if the job doesn't work out, then they're going to remember you. So if future jobs come up, you may be contacted. And 2, they're quite likely to recommend you for other people. So have a good time and enjoy your interview. Bet you're glad that you don't have to listen to me talking for much longer. We are on Facebook and LinkedIn, so please follow us. And just before I sign off, Darren, do you have any final words?
Well, just around the interviews, just try and remain as positive as possible just now, and make sure you smile when you get to that interview, because like your CV, most people make that judgment on you within the first seconds of meeting you. So even on a video conference, make sure you've done all your research, and there is links and stuff on my particular LinkedIn about how to set up Skype calls or Zoom calls, and if you're looking for that. So there is that. But yeah, just follow the guidance we've given you today, and it'll give you a head start on the rest of your competition.
Thank you very much. Well, guys, but Darren and I can both be contacted at CV Aberdeen. The website is www.cvaberdeen.com, or you can reach us on email at info@cvaberdeen.com. So if you have any further queries or would like some help, please do contact us. We'll be more than happy to help. And we are also, as we said, on Facebook and LinkedIn, and easy to contact them. So have a really good day and good luck in your job search.